County Sheriff is again sharing concerns about the state's juvenile justice system.
He is calling for senators to change laws to allow for high-risk juveniles to be housed in locked facilities. Our Marla Lundak joins us live in the newsroom with more.
Sheriff Aaron Hanson frequently voices his concerns over the need for Nebraska's laws to change when it comes to young offenders. But this time, his call to action comes after the arrest of 3 teens police say are responsible for a shooting that killed a 16-year-old and injured 5 others. Hanson says one of those arrested teens should have been in a locked facility.
We need our state lawmakers to realize that the juvenile justice reform laws that were put into place years ago have failed.
One of the 17-year-olds arrested in connection to the shooting that killed 16-year-old Lamarante Swift was ordered by juvenile court to be placed here at Radius. The facility houses teens on probation who can't stay at home. The goal is to rehab them and help them get back on their feet. But Hanson says the accused teen walked away from Radius in September. It isn't a locked facility because of Nebraska state laws, and Hanson believes that needs to change.
We need to learn from these tragedies. We cannot simply accept innocent people being murdered, being raped, being victimized at the hands of repeat juvenile offenders, simply because there's a theory that we don't want to place them in a secure, locked alternative to detention. That's ridiculous.
Radius president and CEO Nick Giuliano tells 6 News the facility fills an essential gap for youth in the community who have become involved in the juvenile justice system. In a statement, Giuliano says, quote, "We deeply believe it's far better to have these youth in our program seeking rehab, education, and wellness than for them to be sitting in detention or return to their homes without any programmatic support." He also says when a teen leaves the unlocked facility, they immediately notify OPD and the courts. Hanson says before the shooting arrest, the accused teen had been arrested 5 other times, including once for robbery. Cases like these, he says, prove that changes need to be made.
We've tied the hands of prosecutors, police, probation, and even rehabilitation residential centers like Radius. And so I think it's time for lawmakers to realize they need to give this a second look. And they need to realize that, of course, we need to prioritize rehabilitation for juvenile offenders. But we have to, just as equally, if not more, prioritize the safety of innocent people.
On your site in Omaha, Marla Lundak, 6 News.